I can't remember exactly which chapter it is. You wrote something along the lines of, you'll discover quite a different side to the Germans that is full of humor, emotion, and joy.
I take that back. I take it back now.
It's the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. I'm your host, Shaun. Follow the podcast on all the major platforms and visit thegermanyexperience.de for more information. And if you want to get in touch, mail me at info@thegermanyexperience.de. I do sometimes take a while to reply, but I do reply at some point. Or you can get hold of me on Instagram, where I am the.germany.experience. And also, get in touch if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast. This week, my guest is someone who has just published a book about life in Germany. But before I get to him, Wunderbla is an online German course that I'm doing, and you can get a month of free lessons when you sign up at thegermanyexperience.de/German. And I just wanted to mention something that I really love about this course. Part of my problem with German courses in the past is that if I do them online, I don't really keep going with it. But somehow Wunderbla does keep me going, and I figured out why. It's because I only get 3 lessons a week, and they come on specific days. So if I haven't completed the last lesson, I don't get a new one. And that means that instead of getting my 3 lessons a week, I might only get 1 or 2, depending on how fleissig I've been. And just knowing that motivates me to get my lessons done. And also the fact that the lessons are sort of 20 to 30 minutes of my time, it really just helps me keep going. And it's really working for me. I've definitely learned things in the past weeks that I really should have learned years ago. If you want to try it out, as I said, thegermanyexperience.de/German. And if you've already tried it out, get in touch with me and let me know what you think of it. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, my guest this week is someone who has written a book about life in Germany. His name is Fadi Gaziri. The book is called The Germans, an Expat's Guide to Living in Germany. And it's partly a guide and partly also a satirical look at the Germans in their country. And even though Fadi probably wouldn't admit it, the book is also a reminder of all the great things about life in Germany for foreigners. The book covers pretty much everything from what you would need to know when you step off the plane through to German culture and tips for learning the language. The link to the book on Amazon is in the show notes. And in our conversation, we cover apologizing in Germany, sauna surprises, making friends, and why Fadi actually likes it here in Germany. And by the way, like me, Fadi has been living in Germany for over a decade now. So right at the end of our chat, we do his quiz, How German Are You? To discover which of us is more Germanized. Here's Fadi. So this book is called The Germans, an Expat's Guide to Living in Germany. Oh, look, he's got a copy.
I've got the very first copy here.
Very cool. How did that feel to get a book that you'd written?
It's a good question. I wonder why. It's a good question that you asked because it felt quite surreal.
Yeah.
I've never published a book or written a book before, anything of that magnitude, and to actually hold, 2 years of your work, 2 years of your thoughts and everything in your hands, feels quite surreal. It was like I can't describe that feeling.
I can only imagine. I cannot either. Was that always a dream of yours to write a book?
It was never a dream. I was doing the articles. It was always at the back of my head. And when I was reading, lots of stuff by Bill Bryson and stuff like that, I always thought, hey, I could do something like that. And I've tried before, like 10 years ago, I tried to do little articles, but nothing really came off it. And eventually I just said, okay, just have a go. And then if it goes well, keep going.
Then it goes well. Well, yes. I can definitely say it turned out well because it is... it's so much fun to read, and you have a very great insight. And the book is definitely part insights into life in Germany, and also part satirical. But before we get to your book, so we'll get more to the book in a bit. But first of all, you're obviously in Germany, and you're obviously not originally from Germany. So maybe just explain to me where you're from and how it is that you've landed up here.
How long do we have?
Just 45 minutes, Fadi.
That's good. It's going to take a while. I grew up in the UK. Before that, I also moved around as a child. Moved around places, kind of like a nomad. So actually, lived first 10 years of my life in Russia, then the next 4 years in Sweden before we moved to the UK. And that's where I got sort of all my kind of like mindset and stuff So definitely I would call myself like having the English humor a lot more than Swedish or Russian humor, anything like that.
Right.
And basically 2002, I did sort of an Erasmus year here in Hamburg. Had an amazing time, met so many good friends, like friends for life, basically. And then when I finished my uni, I thought, yeah, why not go there?
All right.
It was either going to London and living like, in squats for the amount of money, or coming here. And I thought, okay, I'll go there.
And you're still here. So you've been here for how many years now?
I'm still here. You know how many times I tried to leave?
It's like Hotel California, I guess. You can check in, but you never check out, really.
That's exactly it. I think I moved permanently in 2007. So I guess you can start the clock count from there. And if you count also 2 years, I did in 2004. So it's almost 20. It's going on 20 years. It's as long as you've been there, Shaun.
I came to Germany when you moved permanently, as you put it. So I've been here since 2007. So it's been quite a while for me as well. Which is why at the end of this chat, we're going to do the test that you put in the back of your book. How German are you? It's a great. It's a great test. So we're going to compare our notes to see who is in fact more German after this amount of time here. But
you're going to win this one.
So let's talk about the book. Why did you write it, first of all?
Well, I'm going to be absolutely straightforward with you, Shaun. Say, I think it came at the beginning. I was just frustrated, as I wrote in the book. I was very frustrated with certain things that, I couldn't really get the hang of the mentality here. It was difficult to connect with people. It was difficult to like have this kind of off the cuff, taking the mickey, doing, just getting to know people. It was all very serious and formal and cordial, and I needed an outlet, to just let my silliness get somewhere. And there were lots of things that happen, when you just kind of like have a bad experience. You're absolutely fuming, and you either tell it to somebody else, you put it on Facebook, or you put it on a piece of paper. And I chose the latter, I suppose. But I mean, yeah, it's. I don't want to say that the book is only, about venting my frustration. It kind of started off that way, but after a while, there was no frustration left. So after a while, it's almost like going to therapy. After you're empty,
right?
And then you're like, okay, what do I do now? And when that happened, there was like a little switch, like in the middle of the book, where it kind of went from just like ranting about the Germans into, well, I actually understand why they do it. I've actually understood now the reasons behind that. And wouldn't it be great if I kind of like used my knowledge and told other people about it who are mainly feeling the same way, in a way.
All right, but it's definitely, one thing I can say is I expected a bit of a rant when I went in, but because of, I guess, like the way that it's framed in the blurb and everything. But it's honestly not just that. Like you said, there is a bit of frustration, which I think every foreigner who lives here feels and understands, which I think from that aspect is very relatable to read. But then there's also a lot of, like you said, insights that really will help you understand. I mean, maybe you can't learn these things until you actually experience it, but if you're aware of them, then you at least are forewarned or prepared for what you're observing, and then you can really take that insight into your daily life. So I think it's great from that perspective.
Well, you kind of connect the dots after a while. You put it all together, and you're like, the question of why, the big question mark, you actually find an answer to it, and that's when things kind of start falling into places. And even though if you don't agree with everything, you want at least understand it, so it makes you more at ease with things.
Yeah, we definitely won't ever accept everything about the Germans, but we can understand them.
That's the whole point. I mean, we live in this country where we reap the benefits and everything.
Yes.
And we must not forget, lest we forget.
Lest we forget. And the way that you've arranged the book is also quite interesting, because I think you said it goes from things that foreigners will face almost right off the plane, so finding an apartment and the real basic needs, and then expands through the book. Yeah,
I mean, the kind of like the chapters follow chronological order of what you'd have to do if you came to this country. And then I kind of tried to compartmentalize all of this into, what you need immediately when you get to this country, the things that you are going to be thinking about and doing on day-to-day business, like obviously find an apartment, your workplace, friends, immediate things that might help you, not to make any enemies straight away, like the do's and don'ts. And then language is obviously a big part of Germany. I mean, we all know that Germans are very fond of their language. It's got a very long, great history. There's a reason why they dub all the English stuff. It's not just because they're lazy.
Yeah.
So all of that kind of goes into that chapter as well. Arts and culture, I suppose I had to put that in just because, for the same reason, Germany is like a huge country with a very great big history. So omitting that would have been just like, it would have been a part missing, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's important because that's the things that you miss in everyday conversation, because the stuff in arts and culture field are things that get referenced by the Germans without them even realizing sometimes that they're referencing it. And just if you know the basics, like what you've covered in that chapter, is also already a good start for new foreigners.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, there's some basic things like Germans love little limericks, little poetry and stuff, which they write on cards and everything. I mean, you remember the last Christmas card you wrote? What did you put on it? Happy Christmas, Shaun.
Yeah, literally with the card blurb in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Germans actually write little poems, little limericks. They've got obviously all of the poet grades here, so that's kind of that's their history, and that's what they do it.
Yeah. So as I was going through the book and reading different sections, there was one thing that struck me, it stood out to me because you're from, obviously, or not from, but you spent a lot of time in the UK and developed a lot of your tendencies, like you said, your humor and everything in the UK. And in the UK and the Commonwealth countries, like I am from South Africa, which is a Commonwealth country, we have a very different view of the word sorry and apologizing to the Germans. And I think this is something that comes across very, very soon after you land in Germany.
Absolutely. I mean, this goes both ways. I mean, the Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-American world is very keen on, saying sorry for everything. But it's not, I mean, it's not as much actually apologizing as is kind of like a thing just to say, yeah, okay, mate, I realize you're there. It means so much more than just saying sorry, right? Yeah. Germans, obviously, for them, the word sorry, tut mir leid, is an expression of 3 words. First, takes a lot longer to say. And second of all, it's meaningful, like everything else that you say in German. It's not just a catchphrase. Yeah. And for them to say sorry, tut mir leid, it would have to be something, that they're truly sorry for, not just a thing of avoiding conflict.
Right.
Which, as you know yourself, they're very, they don't avoid conflict. They look for conflict. And the Brits, they would hate conflict. Confrontation is like, oh God, no, God forbid.
Anything but conflict.
Anything but, exactly. Yeah. So that's what sorry is about, and that's probably one of the most difficult things. If you're from the English world and you come into a supermarket and somebody walks at you from behind you, almost hitting you, not saying anything, and then you turn around, you're like, what's going on here? I was standing here, you just almost hit me without saying anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that as well, right? I mean,
I have, and that's why this section was really a big thing, because also I think one of the things you say in the book is that, like you were just saying, if someone reaches across you or tries to get something and you're in the way, they don't say anything. It's just like the silence, and then sometimes I even apologize because I'm like, oh, sorry, because it's just the way I tick. Even after so long in Germany, I still have this thing of apologizing. And it is, I think, like you said, it goes 2 ways. I think it's very strange for the Germans too, because I've also heard stories from foreigners and experienced it myself where you say sorry for something and they're almost like, why are you apologizing? You don't have to be apologizing. Exactly. So it's definitely a 2-way.
They have to have a proper reason to apologize.
Yeah. And
although, I mean, having said that, the younger generations, they do use the word sorry in a very Germanic way, like sorry. Yes. And so I guess, there's a bit of amalgamation of cultures that's happened in the past 10 years, which maybe you and I are not going to be part of any longer.
No, I or may not, may already not be a part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, any self-respecting book about life in Germany has to cover the sauna in Germany,
I knew you were going to get that.
This is something that keeps coming up all over the place. And maybe you want to explain what it is about a sauna that is different from just about everywhere else in the world, as far as I know.
Well, I can tell you about my first experience in a German sauna. I actually, had a date from England that visited me. And I decided this was like, obviously before I met my wife, and it was like 15, 16 years ago. And at that time, I thought of nothing better than, take my date to a German sauna, or
Right.
wellness as it was called. So I was just thought, okay, what could go wrong?
Yes, a lovely idea, Fadi.
Lovely idea. And I think, the first thing that went wrong was that, when you go into the actual sauna, at that time, there was a person sitting there, and I was wearing trunks, and the girl was wearing a bathing suit, and we were immediately told off. We were told that's not on. We have to take it off and put.
Which is the first shock, really.
It's the first shock. It's before you even go in, and I mean after that, you go in, and it's I don't know. It's like the Masons or something. You go in there, and first of all, you notice that people don't really use the towel to cover their bits and bobs, especially not guys. What they do is they put the towel on the shoulder and then walk in full glory, just peruse around the sauna, because it's like, this is their right to do. It's like, I'm here, I've paid for it. This is my right to walk around naked here. Yeah. And the towel is not there to cover my bits. The towel is there to wipe myself after I've showered.
To sit down on, I guess, in the sauna, because they're naked.
Well, then would have two towels.
That's right.
There's so many things, that would scar you for life if you don't prepare yourself. So I almost feel like, there should be a list of how to prepare yourself for a German sauna.
Yes.
But I never forget the experience of, because you go into a room, yeah? You go into a room, and there's something that's called the Aufguss. I don't even know how to translate that word, Aufguss, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
I know what you mean, yeah.
It's where a guy comes in, waves a towel, and puts some essence into the pile of hot, whatever it is there.
That's right.
And so you get the scent, and then he starts waving his towel around. But, that's okay. They do that also, like in Sweden, for example.
Yeah.
But what they don't do is, like, after a while, the people just start... I don't know what they do. It's like exulting almost. It's almost like they start making noises in the sauna. Noises of enjoyment, or whatever it is they do. And they also get like a piece of, they get an ice cube that they start wiping themselves with.
That's right, yes.
And then they make, I don't even want to know. Yeah, I don't know if I can make that noise, but it's only the kind of noise that I would never, only in my private life, would maybe like
in specific situations.
Exactly. And this was like, a room, I would say 20 square meters with about 40 people literally sitting almost on top of each other, doing all these noises.
Yeah, wonderful experience for the first time. It's almost a shame to warn foreigners about this. It's almost like a rite of passage. They should experience it on their own. Like, I had a very similar experience in my first time in a sauna. I went with a guy friend actually, and I just had no idea. And he went in ahead of me, and then I came through. And I thought I was in the wrong area because a woman was getting out of a pool in front of me, and I was like standing there like, whoa! But of course, I had the towel around me as well. And I'm like, oh my God, that woman is naked. I'm in the woman's area. And then I look around like, no, there is a man there. And like you said, towel not around waist, towel over shoulder, just wandering around. And it's like, what is going on? And there was that. And then I had to sit with this male friend that I just met, completely naked, as if it was the most ordinary thing in the world, which it was to him. But to me, it was just like, I cannot look at this guy ever again in my life. So it was just...
Wow. How do you feel about it now, though?
I don't know. I haven't been back for a few years. I don't think I'm comfortable with it yet either. I do enjoy the sauna, though, so it's a bit of a tricky situation.
But do you know what even worse than that is? Even worse than like going with strangers is to go with people that you know.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm not talking about guy friends. And I never forget this. We've got, I play squash in this wellness club, and one of the guys, he must be around 60 or something. And at one time after squash, he went to the sauna, and I just saw him, and he was talking to a girl who must have been around 17. Both standing stark naked, having a chat, without any inhibitions. And I was like, who's this girl? Oh, it's my neighbor's daughter. Like, Jesus.
This is wrong. This is wrong.
That is wrong.
Yeah, that is part of the fun of Germany, and it leads on to a similar situation that I think that men in Germany experience, is how in the locker rooms of things like wellness clubs and gyms and fitness studios, as Germans call them, guys in the locker rooms just like in the sauna, have no problem just wandering around naked, and then they start getting dressed with their socks first, as you put it in the book, which made me laugh out loud. And then you kind of have to squeeze through like a small space where these naked dressing guys are.
Between the lockers, there's always a guy who's like bending down to pick something up, and that's the moment when you have to squeeze past the guy, and you're like, shall I wait? Shall I go? Should I pretend I don't care? It's, so many things going through my head at the time. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I could be here forever.
I'm just going to wait here and pretend like I'm checking my phone or something. I don't know. It was too funny. Yeah. So a lot of the things in your book are like this that we've just discussed. But one of the things that came up, and it's quite an important topic to foreigners, and it's something that's come up on my podcast multiple times, is making friends with Germany and Germans. And you, I thought, had some very insightful things to say about this. So you listed something. So one of the things that you said that comes in the way of making friends in Germany is that piss taking, as you put it, is impossible in Germany. Like, and just like you said, in South African culture, maybe this is an English thing and the Commonwealth thing, but I also think for Americans to a large degree, that piss taking is part of the bonding process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, this is like natural thing. I mean, I think you would think the same way. If you like somebody, you would take the mickey out of them. Yeah. That's your way of saying, hey, I like you. You're a nice guy. And you kind of drop the guard. I guess that's what it really says. You drop your guard, you can be sort of informal with a person.
Yeah.
And this is something that I wouldn't say it doesn't exist in Germany, but in a completely different way. You don't start off by giving mild insults to anybody, because they would take it the wrong way.
And kindly, the same thing kind of goes for telling jokes in Germany. And something that's also come up in this podcast a few times is that, and especially for me, I use humor in conversation a lot, but telling jokes generally falls flat for numerous reasons. And I think you even said in your book, if you have to explain a joke, then you're already in trouble.
Absolutely. What's the point in telling a joke? Joke is all about the other side getting the joke. That's how you kind of like connect with people.
Yeah.
If they ask you to explain your joke, they do the opposite of connecting. They say, I don't get you. What's the joke about?
Yeah.
And in that instance, you've lost them. You've lost that connection. So, yeah, I guess that makes it kind of a lot harder then to think, okay, I'm on the same level with these people. But, I mean, I've got, I've got the to-dos if you want to make German friends. And I think it's like quite a safe bet to, for example, talk about health issues. Because Germans, they talk about their health, like, the Brits talk about the weather. You can lead in any question by saying, wie geht's dir? And if people say, oh, I was ill last week, prepare for a lengthy explanation.
Yes.
It's going to be, they're going to tell you everything. They put everything on a platter that's happened to them. And they expect you, you have to listen concentrated and then give, sort of sympathize with them. So say stuff like, oh, du Armer, oh,
oh yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And then you're also, like, as part of a German conversation, to show that you're listening, you're supposed to sort of give suggestions or give alternatives. And that shows the other person that you've actually listened and you've taken in. If you just kind of like listen to it, but then go, yeah, all right, mate, So yeah.
Then that's considered a waste of their time, I guess.
That's considered almost like, they're going to feel almost offended.
Yeah.
I mean, not insulted, but at least a little offended. And then I guess another thing that kind of like still bothers me all the time is that you can't really have a two-way two-way conversation. For me is something where you can interject and, double up on things. And in Germany, a two-way conversation is something that's called switch tables. I actually looked it up. Switch tables is where one person talks, the other one listens. When one person finishes, then the other person is allowed to talk. So to me, that's not really a conversation. It's something else. And I could never the amount of time I'm listening to somebody like at school, and I'm so bored by what they're saying. And all I want to say is just like, oh, could you just give me something that I can shut this person up without offending them?
Yeah.
And I've never been able to find anything. I just have to suck it in and just listen until they finish.
You have to get through it.
I guess one of the other things I found is that, Germans kind of like, they're very, precise on time. Precision is everything. Attention to detail. So even when it comes to like meeting friends, it's almost like making an appointment, putting it in your calendar, making sure you've got 2-3 weeks ahead. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but you have
not entirely. You're not entirely exaggerating. It's not a case of meeting someone or saying, hey, let's go for a beer tonight. That you just generally cannot. It's obviously, we're talking generalizations here, but generally you're not going to be able to say, hey, should we go for a beer tonight? It's just not going to happen.
It might happen in extremely rare occasion where they say, oh, I'm not booked up tonight.
Yes.
Or if you happen to do it like on a Thursday after work night that coincides with them going somewhere anyway.
Yes.
Then they would say, oh, we can try and meet there. But it would never happen spontaneously,
No.
Unfortunately.
And some Germans, as you were alluding to earlier, can be really booked up a lot way in advance, because I know with us especially, we have a family, so things are a little more complicated. And when we try and book with German friends who have families, we're literally booking for 3 months in ahead. So the next quarter of the year, we're making a plan to see them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's Germany. I
tried to book. I made 2 mistakes. I recently tried to try and actually contact somebody who I know, and we were trying to sort of get together. And she wrote to me, I'm booked up until, she gave me like 15th of May, and that was a month in advance.
Right.
And I replied slightly ironically, well, I don't know, that's a bit too short notice for me. Let's make it 15th of May, 2025. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. And then the next time I heard from this person, I looked at my phone on the 15th of May, and I had 3 missed calls and like 3 WhatsApp messages saying, "Wir waren verabredet." We had an appointment for today. Right. What happened? I was like, wow.
I didn't hear back from you.
When 100 people tell you you're wrong, even if you're right, you start thinking that you're wrong.
Yes.
And that's exactly the case that happens in Germany. If 10 people are doing it in one way and you're doing it a completely different way, then you're going to start doubting yourself. And I guess that's part of the adaptation process. You'll start
it is. The acclimatization, or whatever you want to call it, like getting used to the culture. But what's scary, Fadi, is that it gets to the point where you don't even know it anymore. Like you've started believing that this is now right, and you're pretty much Germanized at this point. So
I'm Germanized. That was one of the things when I started writing the book. I knew at some point I wouldn't be able to write this book anymore.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, you have to write it now, because in a year's time you won't be able to anymore, because then you'll actually be thinking in a different way.
Yes. And that is also, when I read that, I related to that wholeheartedly, because it's also one of the reasons that I started this podcast, because I'd lost that feeling of what it's like to be an expat. So I'd spoken to some new expats that I was working with, and they were telling me of their experiences, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember when that was strange to me. Like that was a very strange thing, and it's one of the reasons why I started this, so that I could keep in touch with that, because I definitely feel like my German, the dark side, is taking over slowly but surely.
Like one of my best friends here is an American guy, and he's been here even longer than me. And I already noticed, a few years ago that he was actually, he was now conversing like a German. His thinking process was like German. And I was like, dude, do you actually realize this? Do you realize this is happening to you? And he's like, yes, I do, but there's nothing I can do about it.
What
can I do?
I'm just letting go now.
He's just accepted it, you know.
So that's pretty much all the kind of stuff that you can find in this book. But towards the end, Fadi, you mention, I can't remember exactly which chapter it is. You wrote something along the lines of, you'll discover quite a different side to the Germans that is full of humor, emotion, and joy.
I take that back. I take it back now.
I was just putting that in so I wouldn't get hate mail from Germans.
We were on vacation. It never happened.
It's in the book, Fadi. It's in the book.
For the record, I'm joking.
just to be clear, we're joking here, Germans.
Joking, yes.
And then later on, you wrote, in the beginning, Germany can seem like a joyless place. But then you go on to list a lot of the benefits that you found. So what do you see as the benefits of Germany that make the joyless place worthwhile, for want of a better way of phrasing it?
Well, I think you have to dig, like, this might sound negative, but you have to dig quite deep, you know. You have to really dig under the surface, and you have to really make an effort to understand the people. Because, I mean, even like my statements at the beginning, the people who say Germans have no humor, just dismissing it because they don't have the same type of humor, is incorrect, because they do have a humor. And if you look at stuff, you know, like Loriot, for example, who I always quote, is a fantastic comedian, you know.
Yes.
And even for Brits, he would be hilarious. You know, he's like kind of old school 70s and 80s, but he's got so much humor. It's really there. And the same with another guy, Helge Schneider, who's probably one of the most, you know, absurdly dark humor that you can find. So just based on those two characters, you can't dismiss Germans have no humor. And even if you sit like in a group of Germans, it really takes. They're really dry. If the jokes are there, they're really dry and they're really subtle.
Yes, they are.
Like they wouldn't admit that this was a joke. They would just say something really dry, straight up, and you have to understand that this was a joke. But you can't start laughing. The only way you can reciprocate this joke is by responding to the joke in the same dry and like completely obvious way.
This is the best description of German humor that I've heard, I think, Fadi. It's exactly right. When they make that dry humor, you respond in a way, and if you can't make a joke back with a dry joke, you need to respond in a way that shows that you understood the joke, at least, I think, so that they're understanding, okay, he got it, but you don't necessarily laugh. Yeah, that is a very keen observation.
I mean, it takes years to actually, it's like a stealth, stealth plane. To discover it would take years of just looking through that telescope forever and ever. But once you get it and you know to respond to it, then you can start kind of like changing your mindset a little bit and thinking, well, actually, Germans do have a humor. They have actually a long tradition of humor. It's just very, very, very different.
Yeah.
You and I, we've been here long enough to sort of to be able to have to get that. But I suppose for people who've just arrived in Germany, it's going to be near impossible. Yeah. And I guess that's what the book is about. The book is about sort of paving the way for them and not letting them dismiss things, at the first encounter, but giving it a go and persevering for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that mindset of it's important no matter what culture you move to. Don't dismiss it because you think something is a certain way. It's just that it's probably very different to what you know and have come to accept. That's just like that humor thing.
Exactly.
But what is your relationship to Germany now? I mean, there must be a reason that you're still here all these years later.
It's going to be a long pause. I mean, one of the things, I know this is like very cliche, but most people, like most expats who have been here for a long time, you ask them why they're here, they start immediately naming the practical benefits, the financial benefits, the benefits of this country being democratic. There's lots of perks with that. You can actually live in this country with things that we take for granted: free choice, free press,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to turn this into a political discussion, but there are so many things that just work. I'll give you a great example. I mean, Germans, they're law-abiding citizens. There's no other nation in the world that is so law-abiding, so conformity-driven as the Germans.
Yeah.
And I just want to give you a little satirical example. Like last time I was at the airports, there was a queue. There were two queues actually to get your tickets and put your luggage in, and both of them said Condor flight. And the queue was quite long. I mean, I got in the queue, there were about like 30 people in front of me, and the other queue just as long. And then I think 10 minutes in, the woman at the front desk changed the sign from Condor to Business Condor. And within 2 seconds, the queue in front of me evaporated into the other queue. It just went, like, without anybody saying anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, shall I just have a go anyway? And I did. And the woman didn't even look at me. I mean, she just, she kind of like, tickets, okay, here you go.
And off you go.
And off you go. And the facial expression I saw on some people's faces were disbelief. Right. Also, like I was I've betrayed like the whole nation. It was like the walk of shame. It's like going through the red lights, in Germany.
Despicable character.
Absolutely. It's like burning in the back of your head, that stare that you get.
It is something the Germans do very well. I think it goes along with that law-abiding thing, as they're very law-abiding, but they have no problem telling you that you're breaking the law or looking at you in a very disgusted way.
Absolutely. And that comes from school, really. I mean, that's already trained at the very young adolescent age. Yeah. So basically when people get into high school at the age of 11, they're told, you're allowed to express criticism. It's your right to do so.
Yeah.
As much as it is the other person's right to give you criticism. Accept it. It's drilled into them from that early age. It's, they told how to deal with it. They told all these tricks. For somebody who comes from a different country and all of a sudden gets criticized in that way, you're shocked. You're like, Jesus Christ, I don't know this person. Exactly. Why are they telling me off? What have I done? That's so rude. You never get over
it. You better get over it, folks. So, Fadi, as we promised in the beginning, we need to do the How German Are You? As two foreigners who have been in Germany for a while, at least since 2007, constantly. This is what you wrote in the chapter. It's near the end of the book, and it says, here's something for expat living in Germany. How do you know when you've been in Germany too long? If you answer yes to 8 or more questions, then it's time to buy yourself a pair of lederhosen and change your surname to Schmidt. So I'm gonna ask these questions, and then you can tell me what your answer to it, and I'll give you my answer, and then we'll compare notes at the end. So that
sounds like fun.
Let's do it. The first point: you enjoy curry-flavored ketchup.
Actually, I'm not going to say no. So I'm going to...
You're not going to say no.
I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say yes.
Okay, so that's like a half a point, I guess. I will say I hated it at first. I love it now. I'll be honest. I do. I do like curry-flavored ketchup.
The other question is the curry ketchup only on like with sausage or on anything?
Only ever on currywurst. Only ever on currywurst.
Okay.
Very important. I would not eat that shit otherwise. You own a Jack Wolfskin jacket. I was amazed at how popular Jack Wolfskin is in Germany.
Never in my life. It's
me neither.
It's like German uniform to me. See that sign, Jack Wolfskin. I'm like,
nope, not my person.
You know what
not
happened
my tribe.
Last time Germans wore uniforms and.
You're not equating Jack. Never mind. We won't go down that road. You recycle your bottles and separate the rubbish accordingly.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
No
you have to.
Have to.
You have to. Yeah, otherwise you get those judging stares from Germans all over the place.
Oh, the neighbors will tell you off,
Yeah, and God forbid you use the wrong bin for something. My God.
Oh, God.
When you answer the phone, you say your last name first.
Yep,
me too. It was something that
There's also the reason behind that. I mean, people don't know which name is which. So if I just write down my first and last name, Fadi Gaziri, I often get replies, Liebe, sehr geehrte Frau Fadi. This has happened to me on numerous occasions, and so
it is practical.
It's practical, yeah.
Yeah. With me, it's if I don't know who's calling or the home phone's ringing, I'll answer it. I'll just say Berends hallo. And yes, then we get going.
It sounds German. I mean, Berends sounds German.
It is that has helped me because it is definitely a German surname. My great-great-great-grandfather was German and moved to South Africa, like with the settlers or something. So that's helped. You know where Chemnitz is on a map?
No, still don't.
Me neither, Fadi. I know that it exists now, though. I do know that it exists.
And
I think it's in the east.
Now.
I think it's the Fadi's looking it up.
Yeah, it's close to Dresden, Zwickau, and Leipzig.
It's I thought it's in the east. It's actually quite close to the Czech border, and like you said, between Dresden and Leipzig, more or less. Not exactly between, but yeah. So now you know where Chemnitz is on a map. You are one step closer to being German, like Fadi and I may or may not be. We'll see at the end of this test.
We're going to put yes to both to that question now.
Now we have to put yes, unfortunately. So you arranged dinner with your friends several weeks in advance and sent everybody your address with a Google Maps printout.
I refuse. That's why I have no friends.
Well, I don't know about the printout part, but I definitely arrange weeks in advance. I just have to do that.
Yeah.
Your way of thinking, so that's a yes for me, not for you. Your way of thinking has changed from results-oriented to process-oriented. In other words, it is more important to follow a structure and to do everything as instructed rather than actually getting a result.
I would say no, because that kind of way of thinking is already rooted in me since long time ago, so I can't change it. It's always about the result. But I would also say that I've become a lot more structured since I've come to this country.
Yeah, I would say that about me as well. I think it's definitely structured me because I was a very haphazard human being before I came here. I still am, but I'm a little more structured thanks to the Germans. That's also, I think, the Germans' biggest problem with me is how, when it comes to the process, I'm very, very bad at following a process. Very bad at following a process.
I know, because it's about, finding the, whatever works to get the result sometimes. And
yeah.
But obviously we're thinking in the wrong direction here.
We are.
Let's get back to structure and organization.
Next point, you don't mind watching an English series in German.
No, I hate it.
I can't do it.
It's the same with me and my wife. She hates it too. Sometimes you find a film you really want to watch and then you press buy or whatever, you click to watch, and then it's like only available in German. You're like,
nope, thank you. I cannot do it. I have started watching German series in German. I don't mind that because I can put on the English subtitles just to make sure I don't miss anything. But I cannot watch anything else from another language dubbed into German. I just can't do it.
But the interesting thing is, like, some people who grew up in Germany, for example, with Simpsons, kind of had it dubbed their whole lives. They couldn't watch it in English. To them, that would be a real shocker.
Yeah, I think it's hearing the voices in German, like Homer Simpson's voice in German. I could never put that to Homer Simpson. It was just too much of a sacrilege for me. I'm like, no, that's not his voice. It is never his voice. And this is, like you said, it's the same thing for Germans. When they hear Homer's English voice, they're like, what? Because it is so different. You've stopped apologizing, Fadi.
Yep. If I'm talking to a German, yes.
Yeah.
In situations, but I have to check myself sometimes. And if it gets too close, then I kind of like still reflect and still react with sorry. But I do it kind of like under my nose, like not loud. Like, oh, sorry. Shit, I better run. Sorry.
For me, I do it less, but I still can't get away from it. I definitely do, like you said, catch myself going like, no, you don't have to say sorry there in the situation. Just leave it. But it still makes me feel very uncomfortable if I do leave it. You've got a Haftpflichtversicherung.
Of course,
you have to.
That's the first thing about insurance. We didn't touch upon this subject, but that's also a very interesting subject in Germany because Germany is incredibly overinsured country, and if you ever have like a small accident or anything happens or you break something, first question you always get the Germans thinking is, "Am I insured? Are you insured?
Bist du versichert?
Bist du versichert? Bist du versichert?" And crazy.
Haftpflichtversicherung is priority 1.
Yes.
You never cross at a red light.
I do.
Me too.
but not when the kid's around, obviously.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that is very true.
That would be, kids around. That's, the worst.
It's the worst possible crime in Germany.
It's the worst, really. I mean, it's equates to like murder or I don't know.
Yes, it's pretty high up on their list of crimes in Germany, I think.
Yeah.
You go to the doctor at least 12 times a year?
Nope. I think I avoid it, maybe go once or twice a year. Yeah. And I would never go to a doctor if I have like a cough or something. But
Right.
But the Germans have a different reason for going to the doctor. As you probably know yourself, it's more about the insurance.
Exactly.
More about telling their employer that I was off sick and here's a note to prove it.
That's right. Getting krankgeschrieben is all it's about. It's not actually getting better. It's just about getting that little note that says you're off work.
That's right.
Yes. I wouldn't say 12 times a year. Maybe 3-4 times a year, if that. You know what the words Bescheinigung and Gutachten mean?
Yeah.
So yes, I do, and you do too.
Yeah. So do you have a translation for Bescheinigung?
Bescheinigung, and I think this is something that new foreigners come to grips with very early on. It's like, I guess it's just like proof of things, or a how would you, like a certificate basically? How would you describe it, Fadi?
Yeah, I guess it's like an official piece of paper, Bescheinigung, to tell you something, anything. I mean, Bescheinigung could literally be any form of paper that tells.
Yeah.
You've been 3 times to this public pissoir.
Exactly.
And this is a Bescheinigung to prove that you've been there 3 times.
Everything can have a Bescheinigung actually in Germany. And Gutachten, I came across this term when we were looking for a house, because you have to have a Gutachter kind of check out the property and see what the value is. So a Gutachter, as far as I could translate it, is some kind of value inspector or some kind of inspector. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm explaining that badly.
Inspector. It basically, I think it's an inspector. It could be for anything from car inspector to
that's right.
Accidents insurance inspector to I don't know, anything. It's all an inspector. The guy who has a piece of paper that says I'm an inspector for this, and I can inspect it legally. And the state trusts me in giving my opinion on this.
And here's my Bescheinigung that I did inspect it.
Yeah.
You always follow up with an explanation, for example, weil or because.
Oh, that drives me nuts. It still does. I can't get used to it.
Yeah.
Like the German sentence that always has to explain why they've said something.
Yes.
Ja, ich war beim Arzt, weil ich krank war.
Like, okay.
Because I was sick.
Yeah, that's a very good point. They do like to explain their statements. I don't know if I do it though. Maybe. I'm not aware of this.
If you want to have a proper conversation with Germans, if you want, I mean, Germans love to, kind of like get all the details about everything. So one way of them is to trust you is if you show full disclosure, if you tell them everything, then they think, okay, I can understand. Everything's logical, what he's told me. There are no gaps in his information. Right. It's all plausible. Right. And they all basically analyze that within the few seconds that you told them this.
Yes. Or they can question what you told them. You give them some ammo that they can question to do within an inch of its life.
Yeah. Yeah. So while,
yes. Yeah. So I'm going to say I do that. And I think it sounds like you do.
Say no. I'm going to say no. A rebel on that front.
You capitalize all nouns?
Yeah, capitalize. I started doing that in English, using German alliteration in English, capitalizing nouns and then realizing it and changing it.
Yeah.
My bad.
Really. I don't even do that in German, so I'm going to say no for me here.
Oh dear.
You spell English words with SCH instead of SH.
Happens as well, yeah.
Yeah, I would say it happens to me as well. I'm pretty close to being German. I'm at seven yeses if my counting is correct, and you're at 6 if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So we're down to the last 2 questions here. I just need one more to make me too much of a German. You say "aua" when you get hurt.
I do actually, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Aua.
And
But you probably
last
do
of
it also because of kids. If your kids
Exactly.
were born here and grow up, that's natural to them to say "aua" and not
yeah,
anything else.
not ouch or fuck.
Balance.
And last but not least, you think that making Hitler jokes is inappropriate.
Yes, I do. Because, I don't know. Not in this country anyway. If I'm outside of this country, I want to be really far away, like literally geographically far away before I can allow myself.
Yeah. It's something that I steer clear of. I think I've definitely become way more politically correct in terms of my humor since I'm moving to Germany. And that is one area where I'm definitely very, very cautious.
So what have you got?
Fadi, as far as I was counting, which could be wrong, I could have forgotten or got some things wrong, but you got 8 and I got 9. And
Yeah, but German. Congratulations.
We are German,
yes. Yeah. I can change my
see.
name to Frank Guten Tag.
And to the newer foreigners listening or people who are thinking of coming to Germany, this is what happens to you. Fadi and I, this is what you're going to look like in 10 years. That's what it's going to be like.
Yes.
Pretty cool, I think.
I think so too.
But I am biased. Fadi, you have many things going on. You did write a book, which we've spoken about here, and I will put the links in the show notes for people to find the book. And it is on Amazon. You can search for The Germans if you don't want to follow the links, or you can also visit Fadi's website. You've got a separate website because you're also a musician over and above other things.
That's right. That's probably has been my prime career over the last 20 years. Musician, musical director, composer, like writing music and doing all sorts of stuff related to music.
So I'll put the links down in the show notes to your website. People can check out your musical endeavors as well. And of course, as I said, I'm linking to the book. Fadi, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast to talk about this. I think there's a lot of insights for people. I'm very excited for people to read the book. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Shaun.
Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, give me a review. Go to thegermanyexperience.de/rate. And you can tell others about the show. Do it on social media, do it wherever you want to. But recommendations from friends is still one of the best ways to spread the word about this show. And that's it for this week. Music in this episode, as always, by my band 10 Cent Janes. Additional music by Ryan Anderson. Until the end, I'll talk to you next week. Auf Wiederhören.